Hey everybody, Alex and Sam here with Insum Tennis. Today I'm just going to share with you a little saying that I've shared with a ton of students in the past, and even though it might not work for everybody, it definitely works for a lot of people. It's pretty helpful to use, so I'm going to get right to it. The saying, which you want to try and remember, the three words, are going to be rock, toss, and load. And I'm going to show you what I mean by those three things here. I'll demonstrate it for you, okay? So generally, we're starting with a rock, and what do I mean by rock? Well, what you're going to see at the beginning of a serve is that generally you're going to start with your weight on the front foot, all right, as you're bouncing a ball, or as you're starting with the racket and ball together. Our weight is on our front foot, okay? And we rock our weight back towards the back foot a little bit as we're beginning to prepare our toss, all right? So this rocking motion is kind of what initiates the serve, okay? I start with my weight in front, I rock it back, and then it's going to rock back forward. So the rocking motion is kind of that first step. Good thing you want to have at the beginning of your serve. If you don't have this rocking motion, you're basically going to be relying a lot on just your arm, and a lot of people have a very good serve that way. The only problem, the only risk is, well, if you're asking too much of your shoulder or your arm, then you're more at risk of shoulder injury, elbow injury, those kinds of things in the future, right? Ideally, what you look for in a good stroke is that your whole body is working together and that it's efficient, so that essentially you're using as little energy as possible to produce your result, okay? So the rock is the first step, and it's gonna lead a little bit. This should help players who struggle a little bit with their toss sometimes. Why? Because some players toss, and the reason they struggle with their toss is that they just toss. And their left arm is basically acting all by themselves, all right? And what happens in that case, I mean, I don't know how many times I've had to say that the toss is more a release of the ball rather than a throwing of the ball up in the air, all right? And this is why the rock is important to begin with, because you'll see that when you toss the ball, I've rocked back a little bit, and a lot of times while I'm rocking back forward is when I'm going to be tossing the ball up in the air right there. And so by kind of transferring my weight forward as I toss the ball, I'm just raising my arm up and then I release the ball, okay? So it's not so much my left arm throwing the ball up that way, it's more just my body sliding back in front as I'm about to release the ball, okay? So hopefully you're starting to see now why rock, toss, and load kind of go in together, all right? And you can imagine the last part, like I was saying, is load. So basically, as that ball, you're already, sometimes for some people like myself, I have a relatively quicker rhythm or tempo in my service motion. So my load up is starting as I'm releasing for the toss, and some players kind of toss and then get down a little bit more. It's a little more accentuated, but again, no two serves are exactly the same, and sometimes this is why it's hard to learn tennis, and sometimes why it's difficult, challenging to teach a little bit as well too, because there's not one method or one simple thing that we can tell people that'll make it work, okay? Everybody's got to kind of find their own serve. Now, it's not to say you can't use and take little tidbits of all the other serves you've seen, but in the end, you're going to have to make your own serve, okay? So, rock, toss, and load. That's the idea. Let's start with our weight on the front foot. Shift back a little bit. Some players do it more or less. We don't all have to do it the same, but let's just get a little bit of front foot, back foot, front foot to initiate this kind of tossing motion, okay? And then as the toss goes up, load is simply bend the knees, all right? My knees are gonna bend, but also a really important part that a lot of players miss too, it's not about just going straight down to go straight back up after. We also want to create this kind of forward momentum towards where we're hitting into the court. So load also is going to involve, when the knees bend, to push the hips in a little bit like this right here, okay? And that's really important, because what are we going to see there? We're going to see this kind of tension on the left side of the body right over here, all right? You can imagine the whole left side of the body's in tension. And what happens is that there's this tension, and then there's that release of that tension. As I snap this release here, that's going to help this come around and up all by itself, all right? And that's where you kind of get, there's a really specific grunt that goes with serving, if you haven't noticed it already, right? It kind of sounds like, right? It's almost a grunt in two parts, not the same as like a ground stroke where you're just getting the ball and just goes like, or just, you know, whatever grunt you make when you hit, right? But you see how that serve is kind of in two times the grunt, right? There's the so comes in the load, and then there's the release, okay? So obviously today's tip is mainly in the preparation. It's leading up to the right? We're gonna rock, toss, load. That's it. We're rocking, tossing, loading. Then will come the hit. But like I said, today's tip or lesson, whatever you want to think about it as, is not so much about the hit. It's kind of the preparation, the lead up to the hit, right? To see if you can get those kind of three movements flowing together nice and smoothly. And the bet is that, you know, if you can get this kind of rock, toss, and load mechanism going for you, and that works for you, you should be able to find, you know, better contact in the end. All right. So let's see if we can do it. So I'll be here. So I'm gonna rock, toss. I didn't have time to say the load, but you can imagine in between the toss and the hit, there was the load in there. And yes, sorry, I don't grunt too much when I play, so I didn't grunt when I hit the serve either, but I don't think you need me to demonstrate for that, right? We've all heard what that serve sounds like, and we recognize that grunt. So anyway, I'll stop there. Thanks for watching. If you're still over here so far, go try it a little bit. I wanted to share this because it's pretty easy to remember. Not that easy to apply necessarily, because yeah, you'll see that coordinating those movements together might be a little bit complicated. But it's a good way to think about it, and it's just an easy way to remember what some good fundamentals on the serve are. Okay? So I hope that helps, and we'll see everybody on the next video.